All right, good morning, everyone. Hello, my name is Paul Trani. I'm going to dive into getting started in Illustrator. That is happening this morning. I'll just reach around here and make sure everything's set up. Again, my name is Paul Trani with Adobe Evangelist, taking you through basically 5 days of Illustrator. So that is the plan. You can see it right behind me. You could actually see some of the graphics that we will be making too. So it's going to be pretty fun. Just waiting for people to roll in. This will also be recorded, so you can watch it at any time. But this is for anyone that's brand new to Illustrator. Maybe you're like, what is Illustrator? Well, I'm going to take you through all of that. I even have a fancy guide as well that will help us. So let's dive into this. Cool. All right. Good morning, Amilcar Lavan Astitiva. Just a little coffee. It's actually 9 a.m. here in beautiful Denver, Colorado. CC, good to have you as well, Joshua. Let's dive into this. All right. And I have something fun to show you as well. I actually put together a guide that we will walk through. And then we'll get right to creating cool stuff, and creating cool stuff, that really the idea is to have this to be really empowering for you. So let me just go ahead and switch screens and we'll dive into this. Let me know if I sound okay. Does everything sound good? Is everybody having a good hair day? All right, fantastic. Let's roll into it. All right. That works for you. Here we are. Here's my fancy screen, and I'm going to give you this guide as well. And I will be publishing it from time to time, but here's the getting started guide. So this is kind of what I'm going to reference as I move along. So that is the idea. Let me know if you have questions. Always curious to know where you're from, so give me a shout out. All right. Time to work. That's exactly right. Okay, so to give everybody a heads up about what Illustrator is, basically, and what this session is, this is all about how to learn Illustrator. And today we're going to start, as the title says below, it's all about getting started in Illustrator, drawing and creating graphics. Okay, so, and it can take years to learn Adobe Illustrator, by the way. And over the next 5 days, every day at, 8 a.m. Pacific time, for the next 5 days, Monday through Friday, I will be walking through Illustrator. So this is getting started in Illustrator. So these sessions do hope to give you the fundamentals so you can quickly get started creating compelling graphics and illustrations. Like you can see here, like I can actually open up. I have about 1,000 examples. And even if you want to take a look at a couple projects that I've been working on lately, but this is where we should end up just to give you some inspiration. What's up, Costa Rica? Amilcar from Costa Rica. Play psychotronic music from Colombia. Jorge from Venezuela. Anis Van Tongeren from Amsterdam. Sherry from Seattle. Clayton from Morrow, Georgia. So here's one design that I'm working on. And again, we should be able to create something like this using good old Adobe Illustrator. And of course you can, because it's actually quite straightforward once you get into the specifics. Here's another one that I'm probably going to post today. So I was trying to do a take on basically the Birth of Venus, Botticelli's Birth of Venus, but an updated version. So that's what this is. Although I still need to kind of like take in her hips and make sure her spine follows a nice curve. But that's another project done in Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to show you how to do these things, right? And a lot of this is just line work. If we take a look at just something more abstract, here's just a nice cell, all made with a gradient mesh, okay? And yeah, and we'll learn about that tomorrow. But today, day one is all about essentially drawing lines, okay? So working on basic fundamental graphics is what we'll get into. So hopefully that works for you. Yeah. Ans, sorry I can't pronounce your name correctly. Claude from Haiti. Awesome. So, anyway, so that's the idea. I have plenty more of various examples in here and just a lot of cool things that you can do. Look, here's an emoji, you know. So again, this is all just basic line work. Should be able to do this by the end of the week. All right, so that hopefully should inspire you, kind of what you can do. There's about 1,000 examples in here, but let's go to our guide. And I use Illustrator like almost every day. Oh, Joshua, thank you for being so kind. That is awesome. Some of these other pieces are just inspiration that I've gotten basically off of, you know, like Behance essentially. Because on Behance, you could do a search for, you know, stuff created in Illustrator. Just be mindful, it might say that it's created in Illustrator and Photoshop and this and that, and you just don't know what the DNA of it, like what percentage of Illustrator it is. So here, let's take a look at the outline right here. Today we're going to create graphics, drawing lines, you know, shapes, stuff like that. It seems, you know, really basic, but this is the fundamentals. Like if you can master sort of how to carve a line and manipulate it into anything that you want, like don't underestimate this first day. I think it's going to be good. And of course, using basic shapes. And then we'll get into color and gradients, type and text. Manipulating and distorting shapes, sort of like your pucker and bloat, your various effects that you have, the puppet tool, and then we'll get into some cool effects, 3D, recoloring artwork, adding textures, exporting, all of that good stuff. So, Sherry, and that's the goal of this, is to have this not intimidate you. If this intimidates you, we're doing it wrong, okay? So feel free. Let me know if you have questions. This guide is posted in chat. Let's kind of move on. In fact, let's go to this basics page. So again, that's why I'm giving you this guide, but we're going to walk through this. This is sort of the 5 steps you need to get up and running. And this is what we're going to do today, just to get you familiar with Illustrator. You know, launching it, picking a workspace, picking a tool, picking a stroke and fill color, right? Hitting the F key will go full screen, right? So there we are. But these are the fundamentals. Picking a workspace, picking the tool, that's what you do. You pick the tool first, right? And then you're like, hey, what's the stroke and fill for that tool? Like if I'm going to draw the rectangle, does it have a fill? You know, does it have a stroke to it? What color is that? And then you draw away, right? And then you can dive into modifying the shape, and that's done using direct selection and the sub selection tool. And then you can get into manipulating it with the properties panel, and then being mindful of how it's organized in your layers panel. All right. It is a good luck day today. All right, so that's the plan. That's what we will do. Then, and again, this is the fundamentals that we're going to start with, and then we'll start to create something, because this is where we practice. So starting here, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to hit F a couple times. Let's close down this other artwork that we're going to make, right? So again, I can show you how to make that, but this is the project what we're going to work on. We're going to work on making her today, right? So hopefully that works for you. Let's close that file. Yes, it will be awesome, and by Sky Vantage support. Yeah, I guess you two are talking, but essentially I think this will be fun because you know, I'm going to be adding to this. So by the end of this week, you know, this simple illustration is going to be pretty robust. Okay, so when you first launch Illustrator, maybe you saw me here. Let me know if you actually discovered, you know, this stream by clicking on this image right here under the Learn tab. So you have Work, and then you have Learn. So let me know if you found me based on this icon right here. Okay, would love to hear how everybody found this stream. So, so first thing we're going to do is we'll do File, New. Ooh, look at you, Joshua. You can have your drawing pad out that connects to Illustrator if you want. I'm trying to keep this as lo-fi as possible, like as minimal equipment as possible, so everybody can do it. You're already a step ahead of me. That sounds, I would do it because it sounds like fun. But I'm going to be working with a pen tool and all that jazz. So initially when you start in Illustrator, you have sort of like all these different, actually you have all these different sort of examples that I've downloaded. Yours might look different. In fact, mine has these different icons that are just blank, and I'm going to start with a blank page. But I do want to point out that you have these different tabs in Illustrator that essentially shows how to make something in print. And these are print templates. So you can take a look at, say for instance, this sports posters set. And this is a good way to kind of learn, is to open up a template and kind of pick it apart. But you're going to learn all that stuff anyway, right? So again, those are templates. Those are new to Illustrator. Hopefully you see that. Ooh, you got a notification. That works. A notice on your Mac. Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to start with just a basic letter size, right? So that's what I'm selecting right over here. This gives me all the specifics, right? I could change this. Since Illustrator's originally for, of course, illustrating, creating graphics for print, web, pretty much anywhere. You know, I like to think that everything starts off in Illustrator and then just ends up in other programs. But this is like the mother of all apps. And then it gets brought into After Effects and stuff like that. So you can see, at least for me, since I'm in the US, I'm used to doing 8.5 by 11 inches. Great thing is this is vector, right? So this means that I can size content up and down, and it's not going to be a big deal, right? So that's what I'm choosing, 8.5 by 11. I can pick the orientation. Orientation is going to be panoramic, or like vertical or horizontal. I'm going to pick horizontal. Right? And let's not worry about any spacing. I can go into these advanced motions already, advanced options. And again, Illustrator originally created so you can vectorize, take something that's made of a bunch of pixels and then turn it into vector. So you could print it out really large and put it on a huge billboard. Like Illustrator's 31 years old, I think. Could be off by a year, but I think it's 31 years old. So its background is print. But since I'm using good old, just live streaming, and I'm not going to print anything, I can change that to RGB. The great thing is you can always change this stuff back, and that's one thing I can do. I can change that to RGB. Right here it says, hey. So it does say it's a different color profile defined in the, let's go down here to more. Ooh, so that. In some cases, you might not have this dialog. So again, CMYK, RGB. I'll just leave it at CMYK and click create. And let's get started drawing. Enough talking. Let's make stuff. All right, here's my document. Let's go to File, right down here. Oh, Document Color Mode. You can change it from CMYK to RGB, for instance, right? And then you can also change the canvas size. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm just going to start drawing. We can change that stuff later. Let's reference my guide again. By the way, this is available to you. Actually, let me open it up based on that link. Here you go. Wait for it. This is the guide that I'm going to be working with. And let's start drawing, actually. So I'm posting the actual Illustrator file that I used. Here's the actual Illustrator file. Sherry's had it for 24 years, and she just started. She hasn't learned how to use it. Oh, you're the perfect person to have here. You might be sad, but I'm happy. So again, I can change the color profile from, document color mode to RGB, for instance, right? And work in RGB since I'm, obviously on a screen. So from here, I can pick a tool, right? And again, I'm going to follow along with this guide, right? So pick a tool, pick a stroke and fill color, and you can modify the shape. So this is what I'm following, is that guide. I can pick a tool, just like it says. Check out a color right over here. And right now, I'll just keep the fill to white and the stroke to black. And then I can draw, just like that. And just like the guide says, say you can pick a workspace. That's what I want to do next. Let me show you that. So I'm working in just an 8.5 by 11. Okay, but let me show you. Let me dive into this. Let me dive into the workspace, because you might be at a different workspace. So I'm going to go to this document. Sure, here's my object. I'm going to go to Window, Workspace, and here's all your workspaces, because your panels probably look different, right? And I'm going to pick Essentials Classic, okay? So that's what I'm going to go with. Thank you so much for the flowers, Kahai. Is that nice? Is that correct? And I'm going to pick, again, Workspace Essentials Classic. All right, what that gives me is if I check my output, make sure everything's on my screen, yep. That gives me this panel off to the side, Properties panel, right? Perfect. Properties panel is your new best friend. So whoever said that they've had, okay, so Sherry, that's right. So Sherry, you've never used Illustrator, you've never really, and you've had it for 24 years. Check out this Properties panel. This Property panel tells you everything you need, right? So rather than opening up all these crazy panels, sure, I can open up these panels and check them out. I really just need this Properties panel, right? Because if I decide I want to change the stroke color or the opacity, well, I don't need to open up the transparency panel, for instance, to change the opacity. I could just use the Properties panel. So this is the one panel to rule them all, if you will, to take a Tolkien reference. I need coffee so bad. Okay, cool. Got it. Okay, so we've drawn this. We can see this here. We get all of our properties for what? For the item that we have created. Right here it is. Okay, so if I want to change the stroke size, I can thicken it up like that. Somebody asked if you want to round a corner. Well, you could do that as well. Actually, on Object Controls right here, I can see this little circle. I can pull that in, and I can round those corners. Okay, and you said, how do I round one corner? Well, just undo. And you ready for this? This goes along with my guide. You have your direct selection tool and then your sub-selection tool. So selection and then direct selection, sorry. I just call it the sub-selection tool sometime, but basically we have our selection tool and then our direct selection. It allows you to directly select a corner, for instance. You need to master these too. So with the selection tool, obviously you're going to be able to select this, right? We can see how our properties panel changes, and then we can like move it around, no big deal, right? We want to bring it in 3 inches, like that. That's all I need to do. We can use the transform panel or just move it around. A lot of this content, we have this options bar at the top. This gives me a lot of the same settings, right? Up at the top as is in the properties panel, okay? Just a different way to get to things. So, for the stroke, if I decide I want to increase the size, I could do it that way, or I could do it right up here at the top and increase or decrease the stroke. If you want to modify one corner, that's going to mean you're going to use the direct selection tool. So with that selected, come over here, and I'm just going to click on one corner, just like that. Okay, selecting just that one corner, and then I could bring just that one corner in like that. And I can do the same on this side, bring that in just like that. So hopefully that answers your question. It should, because that's exactly what you're looking to do. I can start to manipulate this some more, okay? But I want you to be aware of course, the properties panel is your new best friend, So Sherry, this is what you should be using. As I even open this up, these other panels, I can start to work with these other panels as well. This is really important. And it's really important to be mindful of what color's on the top. So it's like, what if I do want to change the center of this to a different color, okay? I'm going to be really mindful. I want to zoom in on this like so close. like as close as possible, we could see that the fill color is on top, okay? What happens if I, switch these two? Right? I flipped them by hitting this little arrow. And let me pull this out. There we go. So right up here, I can click this. I'm just flipping between the two, right? It always, I can click on the stroke color, and the stroke is now on top. So now if I decide to change that color, I can, or I can click back on the fill color. So from here, if I know the fill is in front like it is in default, I can open up a swatches panel and I can change the color, right? Or I can pick a color up here, right? Because the fill color is in the front. If I want to change the stroke, then I need to make sure I click on the stroke. Now it's in front, and now I can change it to like a dark green, okay? So that's what I want to do. I do this all the time and I always forget. I'm like, oh, I changed the stroke color and not the fill color. What if I want the opposite of this? I can flip these two. Boom, just like that. Ooh, Sherry, we came to Seattle years ago. Oh, you know what? I'm going to Seattle this weekend. You know I'm going to Seattle? I'm going to Seattle and I'm going to watch good old Avengers Infinity War. I'm going there not just to watch the movie, but I'm going to go to Seattle this weekend because I love it there. And I do remember that. So thank you so much. So can you give it an offset path? You guessed it, because look right over here. Thank you so much, Properties panel. You are so smart, because look, for the object I have selected, it just gives me those properties. Like, this is exactly what I want. I don't have to worry about opening up multiple panels or anything, but offset path will open up this dialog, allowing you to offset that path, right? So that's what's happening there by 3 inches. Ooh. That's a lot. Maybe just by 0.5. Right? I've just created an offset path of that. You get the idea, right? It gets a little advanced, but all the controls that you can do for this object, they're there. What if I decide to draw another object, by the way? I'm going to draw another one out. Zoop. Guess what? It keeps the same colors and all that stuff. Guess what? I can use my selection tool. I could select both of these. Right? I can select both of these objects. Right? And look what I have over here. The properties panel will change because it now knows that, hey, you know what? You might want to align these. So rather than opening up the align panel, just go ahead and pick alignment options. So we can vertically align these. Actually, let's do vertically align center. And now they're exactly sort of aligned in the center. Align the top edge, the bottom edge. You get the idea. But that's why I like this, is it gives me, if I want to join these objects together, I can join them together, and now I have united the two, all right? Or I can undo. All right, so easy enough, but again, I don't want to go too fast. I want to be mindful of the properties panel. It should give me all of the various properties as I work away. All right, what's also happening here? Lamau, good to have you here, my friend. Terstick, good to have you here as well. I do not know what even language you're typing there. I'm sorry, I'm very basic. I just know English. But let's go beyond this, because what's happening with these two objects? What if I wanted this one behind this one? Like, how do you negotiate that? How do you work that out? Well, that's done right over here. You could do it a number of ways, but that's why you have the layers panel. Okay, so just be mindful of the layers that you're working on, especially if you're a Photoshop user. Lamau, I don't know if you're used to using Photoshop, but look, I've been working on layer 1. So I know a lot of people that will just do a right click and they'll like send to back, for instance. Okay, so that's one thing I could do. Or I could use the layers panel, but be aware of the stacking order. Okay, so send to back, boop, there it is, it's in back. Let's bring this one. Let's send this one to back like that. You get the idea. What's happening in my layers panel? Well, let's take a look. I have these two rectangles. Sorry, they're hard. It's kind of hard to tell which is which. But as I select this one, it says, hey, you know what? I'm selected. I'm in front. I'm actually dealing with this one. And in fact, I'll call it rect 1, rect 2. You know, I could take this top one, send to back. It sends it to the back, sends rect 1 to the back. So this is these are sub-selection layers or sub-layers essentially that I can actually manipulate by dragging these up and down. But I think it's good to know that because you need to know, again, where things are, especially if you're a Photoshop user like me as well. It's helpful to work in the layers panel. So I'll typically draw on one layer. I'll start creating something. In this case, you know, some sort of interface, and then I will like typically rename this, and I'll say, you know, menu bar or something like that, and then I'll have another layer, and that's my another layer of other options of the content, for instance. All right, is there an align to artboard? Oh, good question. So again, what is the artboard? Let's move this toolbar back to the side. Here's my entire artboard. If I select this object, I can start to align some things. And what I could do, and I'm just kind of taking a look right now. Here we go. So if you really want to know, this is a very specific question, but if I wanted to have this in my upper, maybe actually not even that one, this one, because it's longer and I want it to be the upper right, I can actually, for something specific like that, I want to open up the align panel. And right in here, I can say, hey, you know what? Let's align this to artboard. So that's where that is. Okay, so align to artboard. That's what I have selected. And with that object selected, horizontal align, and then vertically align, and now it's up in that corner, okay? Ooh, should you have to know Photoshop to get started with Illustrator? Great question, and the answer is no. You don't have to know Photoshop to get started in Illustrator. In fact, I think it's easier to kind of get a handle on Illustrator and then learn Photoshop, but they're two different programs. Stretching that out, notice how this is actually going over the edge. What if I wanted it on the inside? How would you do that? Well, geez, I'm like, okay, well, I need to modify that stroke, right? I should modify that stroke. Let's go over to my properties panel. I need to change my stroke. Here it is. Okay. I'll click on that. Oh, what does this have? Oh, this is what I need. I need to be able to align the stroke on the inside. A little more advanced. Boom. But now I can align it on the inside if I want to. And now you can see it fits nice and neat right up there. Okay. So again, we're just getting familiar with Illustrator. The whole goal is just to get comfortable with it. Have fun, right? I'm just drawing some random shapes. I'm drawing rectangles. I can draw other shapes too as I select this. And actually, let me pull this out again. Anytime you see, what is this little arrow right here? That's a sub menu that can come out. So this is your flyout menu, as we call it. But you click on that, and then you can access all of those various Ans van Tongeren. I'm sorry I'm butchering your name, but good for you. Make dinner for your family. But this is being recorded, so you could always watch this later if you missed in it, or if you're just joining me. But I want to welcome you. So yes, there are snap options too. We can dive into that as well. Sure. But again, right in here, this is where, like, if you're looking in this menu, you're like, where? I just want to draw a circle. You're like, where is it? Well, it might be in this little flyout menu. Select a basic shape. Oh, there it is. Ellipse. Technically, it's an ellipse, but yes, I want to draw a circle. I could draw a circle. What if I want it to be a perfect circle? Because I'm not very good at making a perfect circle. Well, you guessed it. In fact, I'm gonna make an object really fast. I want to make a perfect circle because I happen to be making a face. So that's what we're gonna make. We're gonna make a fun face. Okay, so here's my shape, right? Somebody asked earlier, oh, you know what? You need to, what if you want to modify the corners? And actually, let's give this face a color, just sure, why not, an orange. We want to use the direct selection tool to manipulate any corner, zoop, right? We can pull that out. And not only that, we can sort of curve these corners just by grabbing that and moving that in like that. If I want to move to, again, I'm making a face because I thought it'd work with on an actual project rather than just random shapes. I can select both of these corners, right? So click and drag, select both of these corners. Now let's move these in like that. Zoop. There we have, you know, basically somebody's head that I'm making, okay? Right, so far so good, right? Let's just do, let's draw a little bit more. Again, we're kind of making a face. I'm gonna do, say for instance, their head, maybe it's a hat. On the top, I'll just do this again, selecting these two top points and then rounding it like that, okay? And then let's pick a different color for the head. Cool. So far so good. I want to create a perfect circle. Let's select the ellipse tool. Let's zoom in. And then what we can do is we could do a click and drag. And if I hold down the Alt key, it's going to center. It's going to generate it from the center, right? It's going to generate it from the center. Because in this case, I'm like, oh, I want to put an eye right here. Hold down the Alt key or Option key and then increase the size. Click and drag. If I hold down the Shift key, watch what happens. Shift, pop. Makes it a perfect circle. So I'm often holding down the Alt key or Option key and the Shift key. So Option Shift, boom, there's the eye, okay? That's what I want to do in this case. I'm like, oh, I wanted it just to be a black eye and not red, right? Don't want it bloodshot. Well, what we can do is we can flip these colors. This is what I'll typically do is like, actually, this is what I can do, is I can remove, great question. Okay, so, Sherry, okay, I told you, okay, yeah, excuse me. When you select the direct selection tool, all the corners move. Great question. Sherry, I'm so thankful you're here. So good. Thank you so much. So this is what Sherry's doing. Sherry's like selected it, and then she goes over here and she uses the direct selection. And look at how all these corners are filled in. And let me just change my preferences really fast. Ignore me. But I'm going to crank up the size of these so everybody can see them. There we go. So look at how this is filled in. It says, hey, you know what? I'm selected. I'm ready to be moved. Because that's what happens when you use the direct selection tool. You know, it's like everything is selected, right? But if I use the direct selection tool, everything is filled in. It means it's selected. So what I need to do is I actually just need to click on it once. Click. And now I get this. I get the option to just move this point. So what you need to do is you need to just select it. And then once it's filled in, it knows that you can move it around. Great question. So in this case, if I click on it once, I'm going to move the whole thing. If I click on this one point, these others are not selected, but I can move in this like that. Okay, cool. Glad you said that. Coming down here, again, just going to give this person a black eye. Just going to punch him in the face. Not really. Let's flip this. So again, what did I do here? This is another thing, and you should catch me on this, Sherry. Check this out. I put an X through the fill. That means, hey, I'm not a color. How did I do that? Oh, it's right here. That's an easy way to say, hey, you know what? Don't give it a fill color, right? Another way to do that is right over here. So let's bring that back. You know, it's everywhere, actually. It's like, oh, right over here in my swatches panel. Oh, none. Perfect. Let's go ahead and have none right there. It's like, oh, no, I want the reverse of that. Well, come right down here. Let's flip this. Swap the fill and the stroke. Boom, done. Okay. There that is. What do I want to do next? I maybe want to draw this again, or I can duplicate it, or just do a copy and then paste. And then I can move the eye over. All right, so we have these two eyes. So I have Kevin asking, when I drag an object to enlarge or reduce it, it always does it from the center. How do you switch it? So when you drag an object, so again, let's just do this again with the eye, for instance. If I select the ellipse tool, I make sure I'm going to have black as the fill color. Typically, if you just do a click and drag, it's going to do that from the upper left-hand corner, okay? But if I want it to come from the center, just hold down the Alt key or the Option key. And then I just hold down Shift, and that will make it a perfect circle, just like that. Cool. Okay, you ready for this? You ready for this, Sherry? We're going to do this now, Javier. If I want to duplicate this object, this is a quick way. I can hold down the Alt key and then drag it over anywhere, and that will duplicate it. It's like, that's so much easier. Hold down the Alt key and drag it, or the Option key, depending on what platform you're on. Just click and drag. Look, I can make as many of these as I want to. In this case, I just want to make one. Click and drag, holding down the Option key. There's 2 eyes. All right, let's move on. I want to, make a simple line, right? We want to make a line. Hey, guess what? There's a line tool right here. Easy enough. Selecting that. I want to make a line that's going to be the brim of the hat. I can drag that out just like that. Oh, guess what I didn't do? I didn't pick the color. So I need to make sure I have a color there. Right down here, I make sure I have a color. So again, I was harping on, make sure you have like your stroke and fill set up before you draw. You could always change it. Oh, it's like so thin. Maybe it's the wrong color. You could change that. Just be very mindful of what color is on top. So again, I'm just going to make sure that stroke is on top. What do we do? With that object selected, it happens to be just a simple line. We can increase the stroke, that line thickness, giving that a nice brim to the hat, right? Cool. Easy enough. What if we want to make this rounded? Who knows how to do that? Mohammed? Javier? I know there's smart people here. Because this is a big thing, like making the cap rounded. Get it? I need coffee so bad. All right, so right over here. How do we round this end? Anybody know? Well, let's take a look. Over here, in my properties panel, I want to change the stroke. So clicking on the stroke, click. Oh, this gives me all the options for it. And sure enough, it has to be when you're drawing a hat. That's the only time you can round the cap. It's only when you're drawing caps. I'm kidding. But right here, you can see round cap or round the corners. Boom, that's done. And there you have the hat. Direct selection tool again. We know how to work with that, Sherry, right? I could select this object, or I could actually select, using the direct selection tool, I can click right here, and I can move this around like so. All right, let's get into this. I drew a straight line, right? We know how to draw straight lines now. Okay, I can do that all day long, like shoo, shoo, shoo. Right? We can see how that looks. Just for fun. Let's go beyond this. Again, I'm going to reference my guide because this is a guide I'm giving to you. And Leonard, good to have you. You love Illustrator? So do I. I love it because this is just the fundamentals. It's like you and your creativity. So, yeah, it's not perfect at the other end. Good call. I just nudged that in and I moved this over. Like these two, if you want objects to align, just select both of them and over here in your properties panel. Oh, let's align these to the left or to the right or whatever. Let me get back in here. Okay, there we are. Okay, now it's perfect. Thank you. Let's take a look at, we've drawn straight lines. We can move these straight lines around, right? We can do all of that stuff. Like, oh no, that's kind of in front of, how do I bring it behind? Well, hey, you know what I typically do for any sort of background, rather than taking all these lines and maybe I want them to kind of cut across. I'm like, oh, I want all of these lines behind. I would actually make a new layer. So again, this is the fundamentals. You guys should have this guide. I'll send this out, but we're working on the Illustrator basics, which is making sure our workspace is set up, picking a tool, working on the stroke and fill color. Right down here, we're learning how to organize our content, organization, okay? So again, going back to our drawing, organization in the layers panel, right in here we have this, you know, this person, right? That's what I have for this layer. And what I want to do is I want to create this is what I do. I could move this to the back just by right click, you know, send to back. It's the same shortcuts that are in like PowerPoint and Keynote and everything else. I can send to back like that, but I have to do that for everything. So what I'd rather do is select all of these objects, right? And have a background layer. So I'll cut those out, cut. Oops, let's make sure I have everything selected. Cut. And then I'd have a new layer. Layers panel, zoop, right down here, click. Let's have this be the background, like that. And then let's do an edit, paste. Now I can have this background underneath everything, right? And I can move them around and all that fun stuff. Cool. So what I'm doing right now is kind of taking these objects. I might want to sort of lock these. It works the same way, say Photoshop does and other apps. I could lock down that person layer so I don't accidentally move it. Maybe I want to select all of these objects. Maybe I want to change the color of all those various strokes. And let's move this panel over here. And let's click right here. We can make them all gray. So again, I'm just making a nice background back there, just adding some texture or something like that. You kind of get the idea. Okay, so let's move on. You ready to get into curves, my friend, huh? Let's do this. You ready for this? So, Liam, great question. Can you have a round cap and a normal cap on the same path? The answer is no. I hear you. That's exactly what I'd want to do, Liam. That's exactly what I'd want to do. But it doesn't quite work that way. I'd have to be two separate lines. But good question, because that's what this cap begged for, so that's a good call. Okay, so what do we want to do next? Let's go right over here. I'm going to, again, using my layers panel. Again, I usually work in layers. Some people don't. It's all good. But I'm going to lock down that background. I might have like a new layer, and we'll just do like, you know, face. The big thing is I'm going to make sure I don't accidentally move the face, right? So that's why I'm locking everything down. Right, so let's just work on a new layer called face, right? Because I want to give the person a mouth. So again, what do? We can do this a number of ways, right? We've already used our line tool, like we could draw, and they'd be like, meh, you know, like, whatever. Just straight faced. That's what that's what it looks like right here. I don't really want that. I want to give it like a lot more style and flavor and fun. Nishant, good to have you here. Welcome. So let's get into this. We're going to get into Bezier points. So getting started in Illustrator, you should have this guide, and I'll go ahead and I can pass that along here in a second. Let me just kind of put that back over here. That happens to have multiple artboards. By the way, artboards. Hey, good. Thank you. Sherry knows layers. Sherry, we're taking this to the next level. Artboards is what we have, right? So artboards allows you to create multiple pages. Okay, so on one hand, you might have your layers panel, your individual layers for something, and then you have the artboards, which are the individual pages, okay? So for this document, right, has layers, and then there's only one artboard, okay? So I can have right over here the person artboard, right? And let's go ahead and actually, I want to zoom out. In order to do that, I could use the zoom tool, as you probably know. Is it going to end soon? Is this going to end soon, Nishant? Yeah, I actually have to go in about 10 minutes. But I'm going to zoom out. This is my artboard that I'm working on. I can create a new artboard, right? How can I create a new artboard? Let me zoom out. Right over here, I could just click this little page icon right here. New artboard. Click. There's page number 2, page 1, and page 2. Right, so that allows me to have, again, multiple pages, whatever I want to do, and then I can work on through that. Don't worry too much about artboards. Again, we're just doing the fundamentals of drawing, but I did want to point out layers and artboards because you need to be able to know how to navigate a document, right? So when I go to this getting started in Illustrator, this file that you have, and I'm actually going to give you the Illustrator file right now. So this is, again, the Adobe Illustrator getting started, pasting that in chat right now. And look at all the artboards you have. You have the introduction, creating shapes, and then sort of doing the drawing. And this is what we're going to draw ultimately. But you could see all these different pages that you could jump to. So I can click on outline. Boom, that's what we're working on now. And we can go on from there. So let's move on. So we've been practicing the basics, right? We've been sort of manipulating some lines. Let's get into the pen tool. You ready for this? Sherry, if you could master the pen tool, you're 100% there. You are so there with Illustrator. If you knew one tool, just learn the pen tool, you will be a professional, right? Again, that and just some hard work learning it, and that and some creativity, and you're set. So that's why I've given you this document. You can go ahead and download it. But check this out. I'm just going to, work on this draw layer right here. Okay, so I have that selected. So to draw straight lines, how do we do this? Pretty easy. Select the pen tool. What do we do? Click. Click again. Click again. And there's straight lines. And typically what I'll do is I'll hit escape. The escape key will end the line. But now I've created those straight lines. Pretty straightforward. Bad pun. Let's change the color of my... Drawing curved lines. You ready for this, Sky? Awesome. Sky uses Adobe Illustrator. Uses Adobe After Effects. Sky, you use Adobe After Effects. There's the pen tool in Adobe After Effects and pretty much any other app. So once you master the pen tool, whether you do it in Illustrator or After Effects, learn it, right? So draw a curved line, click once, and then you're going to do a click and drag like it says here. Just do a click and drag. And now we can kind of curve out that line kind of like that. So that's why I gave you this guide. And let me just make sure. I think I got to unlock a layer on my guide. Wait for it. You should have this particular getting started file. Let me open up that exact one. Yep, there we go. Select that layer, save it, close it. All right, so that's what I want to do. What about deleting points, right? What if we have a line? Boom, 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 right? I could hit escape usually to get out of it, right? Hit escape. I want to delete a point, right? If you just hover over it, I'm just hovering over it, that existing point, and then I can click and then delete that point, right? Pretty easy. Adding points, similar. Click, 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 click. Hover over an existing line segment and it will automatically add. So this is all from the pen tool. I decide I want to add a point right here. See right here? Click, and I've added that point, right? So again, hit escape and I can manipulate it, whatever I want to do. Again, using direct selection tool, that's how I manipulate that point. Again, this is the getting started in Illustrator. So if this is too basic for you, that's why it says getting started. But if you've mastered the fundamentals, you've mastered so much more than you realize. Ooh, great question. Kevin, oh, I'm so glad you're here. Kevin says, when I do that, it fills the shape in with white. Well, that's good. That's actually what's happening. So check this out. For this line, if I look over here, it's actually, it should be doing that for me as well. So let me use the direct selection tool. Let's select this line. For this line, if I select it, it actually fills it in with white. The reason that happens, see how it filled it in with white, is because right over here, you have the fill set to white. Okay, if that's set to white, it's going to fill it in. You're like, oh no, I didn't want that. It's okay. How do you get rid of it? This is really important. I'm so glad you're talking about this. Click on it, right? So now the fill is in front. And then I can come over here and say, hey, just get rid of it. Just set it to none. Bop. There it is. The fill is set to none, right? But again, just be mindful of what's here. That's why I typically say, hey, you know what? Pick your tool, draw something. Oh. I guess I don't even, I'm always aware of what's right down here. But pick your tool and then check your swatches right down here. Check what's in your fill, check what's in your stroke. Maybe get rid of that fill and then you can draw, and now you're not going to have that issue. Okay, so great thing is you have like multiple undos. Kind of bring that back. Let's kind of move that back over. There it is. All right, cool. Let's move on right up here. You ready for this? Moving points. Again, I'm only going to go for about 5 more minutes. Yes. Oh, the link, that link don't work. It might, yeah, so I just hit the link. This is actually essentially what you're going to get. You're going to get this Illustrator file, and it looks like hopefully it's downloading right now. But I'm using Creative Cloud to share it, and it'll come through in a second, hopefully. Let's make sure it's being, I just saved it. That's the problem, is I probably just synced it. Anyways, so let's get into moving points, right? What if we already have a line? Click, 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 click. With the pen tool selected, hold down the Command key, right? And the pen tool will change to this direct selection tool. So now I can grab it. So as you're drawing, just hold down the Command tool. It's like, oh, this was off. I can move that over, right? Again, I'm only using one tool. Okay, let's move on from here. Same thing. It's really, I'm only using one tool. Oh, I have this, you know, this line, for instance. With the pen tool selected, hold down the Command key, and then you can manipulate points as well. Make them less or more curved, like that. Okay, convert a straight line to a curved line, right? So let's just say we have a straight line. Bomb, 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 hit escape. Changing this straight line to a curved line, hold down the Option key, and then do a click and drag. And now you can make it from straight to curved, right? Option key, click and drag. Oh man, it is taking forever for that to actually load. I apologize. Ugh, help us all. I will post another link right now, I think, to make it a little easier. Let me just go to that. Wait for it. Again, I'm just going to go for a couple more minutes. I'm going to start this up again tomorrow because I want to dive into creating more advanced shapes. Okay, so, yes. I will, I'll make sure I post that. Just give me 1 second. All right, I will. I'll post this link again. Removing Bezier handles. So that's what these are. Bezier, actually. Excuse me, I'm saying it wrong. It's the same thing. If you wanted to remove handles, you could just click on it, and then it'll change to Convert to Anchor Point tool. So, with the pen tool, hold down the Option or Alt key. Will change to the Convert Anchor Point tool. So I'm selecting it. Click on the point and the handles go away. So if you have handles and you want to get rid of it, hold down the Alt key, click, and you get rid of those points. Right? And those are all the lines that we've created thus far. All right, I'm going to go ahead and post this link right now in case that file's not loading. Here is one for you. Just give me a second. Right here. AI file. That I'm giving to you. It's right there. I just posted a Dropbox link because what do we have in here? We have a little bit of everything, right? So this is a case where maybe you want to practice using the pen tool. So that's the idea. Come in here, use this document, try to, you know, mimic this. How would you do this Aries symbol? Something like that, right? Oh no, guess what? It's filling it in. We had that problem earlier, right? Just removing that fill like that. Hitting escape, you know, we can come in here. And again, this is your chance to be a pro. Zip, zip. I'm going to get into more tools as well. There's so much more to show you. I'm really excited. to kind of take you through this. But again, this is your chance to practice using the pen tool, making these shapes. And what I will show you tomorrow is using something like the Curvature Tool, which is brand new as well. So the Curvature Tool might make it easier. I encourage you to master the pen tool because it's in pretty much every app. Curvature Tool will allow you to click once, and then I can click again, right? And watch what happens. It's like, oh, deciding what that next curve will be. So I can come down here or come over here and click again, and then click, and it will start curving this out. This gives you really nice, smooth curves, typically, that might be easier than using the pen tool. Okay, so that's what I would do, is use that curvature tool. Just click and drag. And then ultimately, you want to be able to practice that on something, which is right down here. Sort of using that curvature tool to make her hair, for instance. That's what I did. Let's drag that out like that. Boom, boom, boom. Right? Give her some nice wavy hair in that case. And then using the pen tool to come in here and highlight the face and draw those lines. Click, click, click. You get the idea. Click and drag for the cheek. You get the idea. All right? Okay, thank you so much, everybody. I wish I would have gotten farther, but we had so many questions, and I got, it took a little while to get going. But I encourage you to practice today. You have that guide. Join me tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And learn how to really take this to the next level, right? Because again, I want to show you how to build something like this, again, very easily, and do other cool things with Illustrator. So that's the goal. We'll learn how to use you guessed it, right over here, a couple other tools, Shape Builder as well, and then we'll even dive into the Width tool. So thank you so much, Sherry. I did this for Sherry. I did this for you, Sherry. So I'm glad if I can help somebody's career or just be more creative. I'm super happy for it. So thank you so much, everybody. Pagan. Actually, I'm going to go live in a second, and we're going to learn how to use Adobe Dimension, which is for creating packaging. So you can always kind of hang out with me because that's what's next. Adobe Dimension CC. I'm launching it right now, and you can hang out with me. Just give me a couple minutes to switch over. And you will learn how to use Adobe Dimension, which allows you to create sort of packaging and sort of put your artwork in these sort of cool spaces, maybe on a pin or whatever the case may be, as it shows right here. So thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Join me tomorrow for sure as well. Thanks so much.